So to me, it's all about creating the right governance stages, governance places, along with the security guys and along with the other folks within the agencies or within the organization.
Imran, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to know firstly a bit about your role and your background as a professional.
First and foremost, thanks for having me. It's my complete pleasure to be always be the part of this Adapt conferences. So
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for that. I think from my experience perspective, yes, I have been in the industry for last 22 plus years and practicing enterprise architecture primarily for last 15, 16 years. And definitely I'm passionate about enterprise architecture and being the enthusiastic learner for last so many years. And yes, that's it.
I think when people think about enterprise architecture, there might be some misconceptions about what the role actually looks like. So, what does your role look like day to day in enterprise architecture?
I think it's a very interesting question. So let's slice and dice. We are talking about enterprise architecture. So means architecting the enterprise. But the question comes, what are we architecting? We are architecting the enterprise. Now let's double click on the word enterprise. What enterprise is there right now in the world? It's all about business, technology, data, infrastructure, technology components. It's a combination of all of these things. And enterprise architecture is exactly the same thing, architecting all of these things, right from the business, data, application, technology, and how these all work together as an engine. So once we architect, we try to create the current state, we try to create the target state, and we try to create the roadmap, how the whole enterprise can go from the current state to the target state.
So, it's like going from strategy to execution in a way.
Absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. How to strategy plus also technology strategy as well.
Yeah, and that must have a key role in terms of how organizations navigate digital transformation, for instance.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting facet of this enterprise architecture practice. And I would like to use the notion called digital business transformation. That's what Gartner used, because digital transformation of what? It's always about the business at the end of the day. So I think I would like to use the notion called digital business transformation. And it means transforming the business, leveraging the technology stack, and how we can add greater value to the customer going forward. How we can give value to the customer using the technology piece, what's happening in the technology world these days.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it because, well, in my area, which is data science, people talk about business analytics.
Oh, yeah.
Business before the analytics. So I think that you
Correct.
need to probably understand the business use case, what the business is trying to achieve, and then understand, okay, how does technology support that? How do you
Correct.
architect a solution that supports
Correct.
that?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
So today's a security event. So where does architecture fit, in your opinion, into the security landscape?
I think to me, in my humble experience of last few years practicing the enterprise architecture and working with the security professionals so closely, I think it's corely about the partnership in primarily in terms of the governance process, that how we are partnering. And I always use the word called security by design rather than security ad hoc, designing something ad hocly with architecture and with security. So I think if architecture guys and the security guys can come together, create the right governance process and making sure that we are designing the security and the architecture right using the principles of the architecture and security at the inception of any application solutions, that always good great. So I think it's more about partnerships, more about governance, more about shaking hand with each other at the inception stage, not at the implementation stage.
Let's zone in on that for a second because I think that's an interesting point. Because one of the things that we hear from high performers is they build in the security at the start.
Yes.
And, security isn't a bolt on an afterthought. So, how do you foster that collaboration with the security team to ensure security is built into the foundational components?
Interesting. So I think to me, it's all about understanding the end-to-end operating model of the whole business, right? End-to-end operating model means how the initiatives are being created, where these initiatives are being created. Can we tap onto that one? Can we create a kind of a governance body or kind of a working group with the security and with the wider agency or with the wider organization people at the inception of this stage and give the feedback right at the inception stage instead of the implementation stage. So to me, it's all about creating the right governance stages, governance places, along with the security guys and along with the other folks within the agencies or within the organization. So at least we have a right working group in place, and that working group is helping us to shape up the right design of the solutions in the business.
And this working group, is it sort of cross-functional in
Yes,
terms of...
has to be cross-functional, not only security and architect, but also it could be data people, it could be business people, it could be EPMO, it could be project management office, it could be program management office, it could be COE function, which is Center of Excellence in so many agencies. So it could be combination of that. So cross-functional and cross-pollinated group, working group, we can say architecture working group or design working group or something like that. We can name it anyway. But the whole idea is basically to collectively give the feedback at the inception of any idea or business initiative rather than at the later stage, because then by that time changing anything is always going to be difficult at the end of the tunnel.
Uh, it's interesting because you've been talking about the digital transformation and the security and moving from current state to future state. One of the things that we hear a lot is there's a risk to not doing anything, both the cyber risk as well as a risk to the experience expectations. So how do you verbalize that to the rest of the business that, we need to re-architect or we need to redesign or re-platform? How do you sell that vision to the rest of the organization?
I think it's a very interesting question. It's a bit of a paradoxical thinking, not to do anything and do something. Once you're going to do something in this current digital technology landscape, these days you would find some challenges. But the question is that what customer is looking for. So if we apply this customer driven thinking, customer passively thinking from the customer perspective. Now, customer these days are being digitalized. They are using the digital technologies day in and day out. They would like to use the optimal, efficient services without any disruptions. So means we have to advance the business supply, business processes, business technologies. So from that perspective, there is a value to sale. But yes, of course, with the applying with the balance of risk management, security management, yet be innovative, it's always a paradoxical thinking. I think it has to come from the leadership, it has to come from the vision, it has to do a lot of things with the culture and the mindset. It's not about technology, it's about the mindset, it's about the innovation mindset, it's about customer driven thinking. So to me, technology comes at the later stage. It's all about the vision of the leadership, what they would like to give to their customer and how and which form. And keep in mind, we are in the competitive world. If you're not doing, someone else will do it and they will grab your customer because they would get the better services from you. So we are in the world where we have to do it, whether we like it or not, but we have to adapt to it.
Is some organizations, when they're talking about enterprising digital solutions, they talk about moving from a project to a product mindset.
Absolutely correct.
I don't know if that's something that you have an opinion or some experience in.
No, absolutely correct. I think productization versus projectization, right? Project has a start and end. Product has multiple projects within that. And I think that's a good idea, product idea or service idea, that how we can give the services, because service and product always entice you or implicitly forces you to think from the customer perspective, because you are creating a product for a customer. You are not creating project for a customer, right? Project is always for the project sponsor, you see. But product is always for the customer because you're going to serve the customer. So I think that mindset, that customer driven thinking and the user experience thinking will come immediately once you talk about product. So yes, product and project is always a dichotomy in the world, but I think to me, productization thinking is definitely forward-looking thinking, because that helps you and push you to think backwardly from the customer perspective, that what customer would like to have it, and from the user experience perspective.
I think it also forces you to think about a continuous improvement model,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. The Kaizen, the so-called Kaizen approach from the Japan. Yes, absolutely. Continuous improvement, continuous innovation, DevSecOps, and all these things. I think continuous releases. And I always use the notion called lean startup idea, because lean startup idea somehow, and I think lean startup notion has to be there in all the companies these days. Every company should work like a startup, and that's what I like about Amazon. Every company should think it's a day zero, day one of the company, and day zero, day one of the company means you have a high risk appetite, nothing to fail. Even you fail fast and go on. And that's what I like about this guy Ash Moria, who wrote the concept of the lean startup model. And that the lean startup model always says us that yes, continuous innovation, work with the startup mindset, continuously release your products and services, and then see the customer feedback and always think from the customer perspective. I think that lean startup idea, and I always call within my own team something called entrepreneurship and something called intrapreneurship. So entrepreneurship, as we all know, creating my own company, but intrapreneurship is the idea which all the CEOs should promote. That's called internally, how can I come with a new idea internally? Rather than creating my own company, I'm creating a new idea, new product, new services within my own company. That's called intrapreneurship. So intrapreneurship ideas have to be promote or encouraged within each company these days.
Yeah, and you need people that have that entrepreneurial mindset, but within your organization.
Correct. And then the organization can back up with the money and the finances, so they don't have to go outside, right? That's what happened with the guys called HPs and the Intels of those worlds, right? SAP was started with that one, right? Because SAP was an internal idea, but ultimately they have to go out and they have to create their own company. So I think these days we are in the world where young youth, Gen Z is coming these days. They are so much into tech savvies, and they would come up with the ideas where they would love to get leveraged and be encouraged by that thing.